Obviously, I'm a man and this is the male perspective here, but I think my wife looks the most beautiful when she's just naturally letting her health and vibrance shine through. And what you see, particularly in kind of social media land and such, is I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term filter dysmorphia or Snapchat dysmorphia. It's kind of emerging as a scientific phenomenon now where women are so used to adulterating their faces with Snapchat filters and then trying to reconcile the apparent gap when they look at themselves in the mirror saying, wow, I don't look like the filter. So what I'm going to do to fix that is get fillers and Botox, and I'm going to put a pound of makeup on my face every day. And you have to wonder then, what the skin condition and the health and all of the other associated problems with that down the line will be, as opposed to somebody that takes the more natural route and actually just has vibrancy and health that comes through more naturally. And I think that's just tricky because it's going to be a combination of both things: better products like you provide with Toups, better messaging, and a healthy pushback to, hey, we don't all need to look like a Snapchat doll.
Absolutely. And, when we do our marketing, the very first big marketing photo shoot that we did, I had the photographer come back and ask me some things, how do you like these photos? And do you want me to touch this up? And we were like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, we want these women to look the way they look because we think they're beautiful the way they are. And, really pushing that messaging out. And at the same time, realizing that, not everybody has seen the photos and things from Toups, and there's so much on the internet that is targeted at women to look a certain way. And you see all these, influencers and people that are on social media, and they're getting Botox so young. And
Mm,
I guess I have 5 children, so I'm a little removed from all of the social media and influencers and things like that. But when I do see it, one, I'm baffled, and two, I'm sad for our younger generation. And I think that as parents and educators, that we just need to do a really great job of explaining that that's not normal
mm-hmm.
and that's not what people look like. And, I had a woman here yesterday at my house, and we were just exchanging some things and talking about the farm and gardening and things. And she's probably in her late 70s. And I just think that she was one of the prettiest women that I've ever met. And so I was asking her a little bit about her skin. Hey, what's your skincare look like throughout your life? And she's like, oh, I use pig lard when we would butcher our pigs. And I was like, okay, she didn't really know my story.
Wow.
And so I was like, that's exactly what I do for a living. And, she mentioned the sun and loves the sun, and she's out, and we're so afraid of the
Mm,
sun's rays. We want to cover our skin with um sunscreens and things like that. But this woman who's older has eaten a pretty decent diet throughout her life, and lived on a farm and got a lot of sun exposure, just had such a beautiful look about her. And really just portraying that to the rest of people who are because they're watching us as a
yes.
skincare brand. And what are we saying, and what kind of media are we putting forth? And definitely want to just align with natural is beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very glad you brought up the sun
The
because
sun.
from the dermatology lens, the sun is pretty much the worst thing you could do for your skin, right?
So bad. Yeah.
I've even seen advice, I've seen influencers talking about wearing sunscreen indoors if they work in buildings with like large glass windows because the UVA can still get through and this will age your skin. And meanwhile, again, yes, they're caked in makeup, so it's interesting, right, that they don't mind that aging the skin. But I love that you said that these examples I've heard you talk about in the past. You're a bit of a sun worshiper too, as are we love this stuff. But how do you kind of push back against that and just explain? And I've also heard you say eat your sunscreen. So I'm very happy you brought this up, and I'm just curious on your philosophy around sensible, safe sun exposure.
Well, obviously, over a sun exposure can be damaging, but we absolutely love the sun. We get as much sun as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
But I have noticed, when we were eating a very standard American diet to the way we live now, which is, plenty of healthy animal fats and retinol and vitamin A, and we just don't burn like we did
Mm-hmm.
before. And so my husband is a lot more fair than I am. And so at first he was like, well, he had this mentality of, well, I grew up very fair and
Mm-hmm.
I burn really easy, or I freckle a lot. And to see the diet change and the change in the way we respond to the sun, it's incredible. It's unmistakable. And so showing people and giving that education on eating your sunscreen you definitely get a little pushback on it. It's definitely against what the narrative. It's so different and it's almost scary. Like I'm going to
Hmm.
damage my skin if I do that. But, um, as you know, eating the sunscreen is just so important and getting enough retinol and magnesium at the same time.
Mm,
And then going in the sun is just so good and so healthy. It brings up those vitamin D levels. You just feel good.
yeah.
And my kids, I don't think they don't wear sunscreen at all. If we're in the sun and we live at the beach, and so we are, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the Gulf Coast. And so we spend a lot of time in the summer at the beach. And that is the time where people are like, well, I'm going to make an exception for this really intense sun at this time. But we pop us a tent. We put on long sleeves if we
Hmm.
think we're getting too much sun exposure, and we don't need sunscreen, and we're still able to get all the really wonderful health effects from the sun. And I can't say that I'm seeing a lot of sun damage on
Yeah.
my own face because I was like, well, maybe in a couple years I'll notice, still being a little skeptical of it. I'm not going to wear sunscreen, but if I get sun damage and all the things, well, that's just part of it. But I haven't noticed that.
Yeah.
And so you don't see that sun damage when you have enough nutrients internally.
It's been very similar to my experience too. As you can see, like fair skin, I'm a giant walking freckle in the summer, ginger beard. So I had a propensity to burn a lot when I was growing up. We used to go to Spain. I'd remember these like rite of passage sunburns on my shoulders, so painful, but I was eating junk. And now it's like I would have to try really hard to get burned. I mean, I'm sure I could do it
Right.
if I spent, 10 hours a day outside in Mexico sun or something like that. But it's just so much
Yes,
different now with the eating your sunscreen. And I love that you said just listen to the innate wisdom of the fact that it feels good to be in the sun. Like go lie down in the sun. It feels amazing. There's an old saying that nobody's depressed at the beach, right? Because you're
that's
grounded, you've got
right.
the ocean, you've got the sunshine. But I do know that you've kind of also tried to bring a solution to this problem that is sunscreen, because you do have a sunscreen product that's either in production or it's already out. So where did you
It
see
is
the
out.
issues with conventional sunscreens, and now what are you doing to give a more natural option?
So we're using tallow mixed with a non-nano zinc oxide, which is
Nice.
not inherently a sunscreen, but more like a sunblock.
Hmm.
And so it's for your face if you know that you're going to be out in the sun. And I definitely saw a need in the market for people who maybe their diet isn't optimal and they know they're going to burn if they're going to be out there and they're going to be out in the sun. It's an easy way, very non-toxic to block the sun from certain parts of the body so that they don't get burned. At the same time, while encouraging sun exposure and healthy and safe sun exposure.